I've been asked to speak about Ongwahongwe, First Nations people's struggles and some of the personal struggles against oppressive entities that impose sweatshop-like conditions on us, migrants and people without full immigration status. Also, I will highlight some strategies that is being used to fight back and some inspiring victories that I experienced along the way with the Six Nations people and others. I just want to tell you that I remember my first encounter with brutal oppression was when I was about 5.5 years old. My brothers were away. They came home and they ran in a house and with my cousin and telling us that the police shot at their car. I remember following the men outside to look at the back of the truck, at the trunk, I mean, of one of my brother's cars. I doubt that the men even noticed that I had followed them. You know, when we are distressed, we don't really see who is there. And sometimes us adults don't recognize that children are nearby and taking it all in. What I saw that early afternoon changed my perception of the police as protectors. There were at least 4 to 5 bullet holes in the trunk. My cousin was driving while one brother sat in the passenger seat and the other in the back. They were on their way back from Hamilton and driving through Caledonia when they were chased by the Caledonia police, which was the Caledonia police at the time, and now it's policed by the OPP. That really opened my eyes up about what happened. They could have killed my brothers or my cousin without any care in the world and probably gotten away with it. The reason they drove on and didn't stop for the police was that they had bad experience with them in the past and didn't trust them. But thank God they made it to the boundary, so-called boundary of their territory and came back. When the men went back inside, I lingered for a while. I remember thinking, I'm never going to trust the police, they will shoot you. I remembered asking why as I stood kicking the frozen ground near the car, and it seemed so futile. So I remember that these are only beginnings of, no 5-year-old should have to go through that. And nor should anybody be subject to such hatred. Yeah, my dad was surprised when I told him that I saw the car. He said he didn't even notice me out there. I asked him why they did that. He just put his hands on my small shoulders with a pained expression on his face, and he said, some of those white men, the police, they hate who we are as Ongwahongwe people. This is how it always will be. I said to him, I remember looking up at him, I said, but I was born me. Why is it my fault? My dad sternly said, it's nobody's fault. It's the people who hate us and want to hurt us. From that day on, I knew that there were very bad people out there and who had a lot of hatred for us, coming from the agents of oppression. The other one is my father's violence towards my mother. He drank every payday and got really drunk. I remember him talking about the mush hole, meaning the residential school in Brantford, where he was forced to go by the government. I remember running through the dark forest after my mom woke us up and told us to dress. We could hear my dad coming home from the bar and was shouting as he walked down the road about a quarter mile away. And no family should have to do this either. My mother stayed awake. She sacrificed a lot for us. She stayed awake every time he went out drinking, listening for his hollering. She refused to stay and receive the beatings. Sometimes it was winter time, and when there was slush on the snow, we still have to run through it. And sometimes, even in the winter time now when there's slush in the snow, I get flashbacks to those nights. My dad, when he was injured at work, he took time to recover without any sick pay. When he attempted to go back to work, they said he was laid off, another fancy word for fired. So we struggled to stay afloat. The $6 per child, $6 per child from the so-called baby bonuses could only go so far. I remember going to school hungry and also going without food for 4 days at a time. My dad only drank occasionally after that. I remember thinking the only good thing is that he isn't hitting my mom as much. Yeah, it was a struggle for our family, as no other businesses would hire my father because of their racism. And meanwhile, he worked at the jip mine in Caledonia, and meanwhile they're digging up our land and taking all the resources out of it. Then later years, my mom and dad looked for work in the agricultural business. A non-native man in Stony Creek hired them picking whatever fruit was in season, like cherries, apples, grapes, and so on. That was some of the happiest time of my life, getting to go to the farm for the summer. I remember I was bugging my mother to tell me when the cherries were ripe. And she'd smile and say, it's only June, we have to wait until July. My siblings and I lived on a farm, and all the children who went to the farm worked. I didn't see it as child labor. It was so much fun to me. We picked a basket of cherries so we could get some goodies and also to buy new clothes and shoes for school. And I believe my mother and dad were less pressured to work harder to make ends meet and also buy the stuff that we needed for school. The boss was good to our family, and so I remember him taking 3 of my siblings to the restaurant for fish and chips and Coke, and we had cherry stains mixed with dirt running down our mouths and arms, and dust in our hair and dirt on our little bellies. My sister and I were shirtless like the boys, but the boss still took us to the Chinese restaurant and introduced us as his children to the owner. I like to joke that I retired when I turned 40 because I worked my butt off when I was a kid. Yeah, I have really good memories of that. And one memory that I want to share with you is that in the evenings, my siblings and I would go and hover around where the boss was talking to one of the workers, Cleveland, who was also from Six Nations. And I recall Cleveland telling the story of a man from Six Nations who drank himself to death. Cleveland said the guy did himself in. He woke up the next morning and he was dead. And I piped in, I said, oh heck, how could he wake up if he was dead? The boss laughed while Cleveland got embarrassed and tried to shoo me away. And Rich said, I didn't even catch that. He said, you're a smart little girl. So these were things that go on, and my dad's drinking continued because of the abuse at residential schools, and the residential schools were set up to assimilate us, and also there was a lot of sexual abuse, psychological and physical abuse. So it goes on generation after generation. So I recall speaking out against violence towards women and misogyny when I was about 8 years old. I used to put the male relatives in their place when they misspoke about the females. My dad died when I was 16 years old, so I left the territory at 18 to pursue post-secondary education in Brantford. I stayed there until I was about 21 and moved to Toronto. This city, like some of the people who spoke tonight said that I know what they felt. It was like coming to another world. The city was so overwhelming and was fast moving with white people who have European urgency syndrome and no time for you.